Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Travis Talks. This is the first episode that I am doing on my personal YouTube channel, at least in a while. For those of you that don't know, this actually got started over at GameSpot, and then I brought it to Yahoo, and it's basically a show where I discuss my opinions on something that has happened recently in esports or something that's been on my mind. And in this episode, I want to talk about CLG and MSG acquiring the controlling stake in CounterLogic Gaming. And again, for those that don't know, MSG is Madison Square Garden Company. Now, this is perhaps a very, very exciting time for acquisitions and all that stuff, knowing that we have the LCS RFP, or request for proposal, the franchising thing that's happening next year. And so you're seeing all these teams partner up with either traditional sports groups or investment groups or whatever. You also have, of course, the Overwatch League that is occurring around the same time, though it doesn't seem like this is part of that at all. Before we get into any of this, I would like to congratulate HotshotGG on an exciting moment for him as well. For those of you that don't know, CLG, one of the first, if not the first, esports team in the League of Legends esports scene, started probably about 7 years ago. And this was a company that Hotshot just made on his own, a little bit of support here and there, but mostly pouring a lot of energy into it, especially in the early days. And I have seen this guy spend money and time running and working in this whole thing. At times has been able to hand it off to other people as well, but certainly deserves credit for being one of the first people to realize the value in League of Legends esports and really spending whatever it took, I think, to make sure that this thing stood around. And by the way, there were a lot of ups and downs. They almost got relegated, so it's finally time for this guy to get rewarded. And I am fairly certain that with MSG again acquiring a controlling stake, which is very different than a lot of the other partnerships and situations that occur out there with esports teams, that Hotshot has probably set himself up pretty comfortably for the time being. And so it's always exciting to see a guy who went from startup to successful company sell something and really get rewarded for it. And I think Hotshot deserves it, so congratulations to him. Now, what does this mean for CLG fans or LCS fans across the board? Well, one of the first things that you should know is that Madison Square Garden is a publicly traded company and has not just traditional sports teams underneath them, but entertainment venues. For instance, they have the Madison Square Garden, of course, but also the historic Boston Theater that you saw the Chicago Theater that you saw Worlds take place in a year ago. So Riot already has an existing relationship with these guys just because they've used their venues multiple times, and it's a company that has a great deal of business expertise on how to run things both on the sports side and the entertainment side. And so while I do believe that Hotshot and his staff will continue to help make sure that everything runs well on the esports side, I think this is the type of company that can really turn CLG into a successful business. And guess what? That is great news for their LCS chances next year. I cannot imagine a world where where CLG did not make it into LCS coming next year with the whole permanent partnership stuff. So I would say early congratulations to those guys. And I know a lot of people were probably like, "Oh, come on. They were always going to accept CLG in. How could you not accept CLG in?" Well, we don't really know what the nature of the CLG finances were. For instance, they might not have had the $10 million to get into the LCS in the first place, which is what you have to pay to get in. And I don't know. A lot of people don't really understand the finances right now for esports teams. Most of them are losing money, and I can't imagine that CLG was making bank. They have sponsors, but they don't have huge sponsors or too many non-endemic sponsors. So this, I think, will allow Riot to feel pretty comfortable bringing CLG into the league. And I think this also will help CLG just retain stability in the future, but also grow. As I said, these guys are professionals, and I think that they will be able to leverage existing relationships with sponsors and companies, really big sponsors, by the way, to make sure that CLG is safe for the future. And not only that, but they also have all these cool venues, so I could really see the company leveraging the existing resources that they have already to put on cool events. Imagine if instead of having to meet CLG in a mall or something for a fan meet, you meet them at one of these awesome venues, in a day where there's not a sporting event or an entertainment event happening already. So that's really cool. And I also think that this is very different than the other well, most of the other announcements that you've seen with companies or investment groups taking a stake in an esports team, because it is a controlling interest. And from what I've heard, there's probably going to be a great deal of interaction between the two companies. So I think really good news there. Excited for the future on all this stuff. And I just congratulations to HotShot. A huge news for all the different fans, and I think one of the most exciting announcements that we've seen in this vein to date. So hope you enjoyed watching. You can check out the rest of my coverage here on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe. By the way, ad block rates are tremendous, and I don't really make very much money doing all this stuff right now while I'm figuring out what's next. I'll probably do a video soon on why I might not remain independent, because I think a lot of people don't understand in the same way that they don't understand the finances and the cost for a lot of traditional sports teams, I think, or esports teams. I don't think that people have an idea of how this stuff works. So you can support me over at travisgafford.com/support. There's a link in the description and stuff that pops up on the screen here. And looking into some options, by the way, soon for people that can't necessarily or aren't interested in supporting financially. Maybe some other links or things that you can do to help out. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.